It is 11/25, 2024. Rivalry week in the building. We made it to it. Man, I can't believe it's the end of the season already, man. It just seems like it started yesterday. Level Up College Football Podcast. Sarah C., Andy P., and Big G in the building for our final podcast for the 2024 NC2A football season concerning the regular season. Y'all, we made it. Hey, wherever you get your Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and or Google, make sure you check us out. You're watching us live on YouTube. Put your comments in the chat. We're looking for them. Before I get to the show, what's up, Andy? What's up, Sarah? What's cracking with y'all?
Oh, doing great. Just is super excited after this past weekend. It's been quite a interesting football week in all aspects, really. So I'm really excited to talk about what's coming up this next week. It is my favorite week. I love Rivalry Week.
Man, I love it, man. It's my favorite time of the year. Rivalry Week, Thanksgiving. I mean, you can't beat it. You cannot beat it. Andy, what's up with you, bro?
Yo, I'm recovering. I'm actually back in my parents' basement, going back to where the blogging journalism career really started all those years ago. But I was up in Syracuse this week, watched that game against UConn. That was an experience. Got my football games. I think that's my last college football game in person till next season. So excited knocking that one out. And now the crazy part was, and I know we're about to get into it. There's a chain of restaurants in Syracuse called Tully's, and they're basically a giant sports bar. They have amazing chicken tenders, all the good stuff. Went there with our crew, and we got to watch all the 3 p.m. and later games at a sports bar that had all the TVs up and showing all the games in the quad boxes. I have not seen a weirder group of games. Like that noon slate, like, okay, Ohio State took care of Indiana. Business as usual. Let's go. Let's keep going. Okay, everything seems to be going fine. And then once those 3:30 games kicked off, all hell broke loose. Absolute weirdest few hours that I've seen. So far this season, it's been kind of spread out. Like you'll have a weird noon kickoff, a weird 3 o'clock kickoff, a weird night game. Nah, it was just all like once 3 o'clock hit, we're like, nope, this is when the weird's starting now.
Man, I wanted to call it, and I'm not gonna front on y'all. I wanted to say it was Upset Saturday because I could feel it. Because we didn't have that weirdness that happens every year in college football where we think we have everything figured out concerning the slate, who's going to the playoffs, who's going to win, who's going to lose. And there's always that monkey wrench Saturday that happens. And this year just happened to be the last Saturday we was just in. You know, we had outstanding football games, but we had a couple of monkey wrenches thrown into this that threw a couple of conferences and to my opinion, total turmoil. So I'm going to talk just a little bit about the 2 conferences that I think's got an issue, and it might also be 3, but I'm going to throw each conference to one of you guys. So conference number 1, Sarah, I'm going to throw it to you, is the SEC. I think with the losses of with Ole Miss losing, with Texas A&M losing, with Alabama losing, now my question is, do they get more than 4? Do they get 4 teams in the playoffs? Does that happen?
I don't know. I was kind of going through it last night when I was watching the football game last night that I had to stay up for because it was so exciting to watch. That I went through the list and I'm like, oh wait, we might really not end up with 4-4, and then the 1-1-1. That's where I was at this whole entire season. And I went through and I was like, right now, I went through the AP, I went through the last week's college, and then I kind of thought where my brain would go, possibly where the college football playoff will go. And I went with 4 Big Ten teams, 3 SEC teams. I think now there might end up being 2 ACC teams because of the fact that I think SMU has really, really created a name for themselves this season, and they are proving themselves. And I think that I think they personally look a little bit better than Miami. I mean, I know Cam Ward is amazing and everything like that, and he can pull off miracles left and right. But SMU, I think, is a much better complete team, and I think that they'll be a lot more exciting to watch in the playoffs. And then I had with the one Big 12 team, which I don't even know if a Big 12 team should even be in it anymore. Because I mean, it was bad. That's just some bad football being played right now in that whole conference. Like, no one seems to be able to know how to win. I mean, you're letting Kansas just play upsets every Saturday now. I mean, I know that they're a lot here and everything like that. So yeah, I really, really am intrigued to see what they're going to do tomorrow. But I think right now that we are going to see the SEC get very, very upset with the rankings that come out, because I don't think that they're going to have more than 3 teams in that top.
Oh, Andy, Sarah talking strong, bro. Now, Sarah made a preference and she says she thinks that a secondary ACC team will get in. So I want to, like I said, I was talking conferences. I started with the SEC first. Andy, I'm going to throw it to you. Does the ACC deserve one or more teams in this year's playoff, man?
I think it's really interesting because you look at SMU, they arguably have a better resume than Miami because their only loss is to a BYU team that is still in that mix for the Big 12 title game and maybe a playoff spot. So it's kind of like apples and oranges here. But Ohio State's only loss right now is to another playoff team and maybe to another conference champion. SMU is a worse version of Ohio State by the numbers, but they've got a very similar resume now that we know the committee is not looking at margin of victory, or at least they say they're not looking at margin of victory. They only care about the teams and that team's profile. What I will say about Miami is that game against Wake Forest was not inspiring. I know the score looks good, but for 3 quarters, a Wake Forest team that's arguably one of the worst versions of Wake Forest in the last 5 or 6 years was tight with Miami the whole game. And Miami's next game, I'm not saying that Syracuse looked great against UConn. UConn backdoor covered, and that's not what you want to do when it's your senior day at the Dome. But Miami is now coming off of a road. We'll have to travel up to Syracuse, play in a dome stadium that's loud. It's the last game of the year. It's an old old Big East rivalry reborn in the ACC. I think it's going to be another tough challenge for Miami. And now I'm at the point of saying, yeah, I think the ACC might get 2 teams in. I don't know if the second team is going to be Miami because Clemson is sitting here saying, like, by the way, our losses to Georgia and to Louisville, those are not bad losses comparatively, and they can still get into the ACC title game with that second Miami loss if Syracuse can pull the upset. So it just becomes a situation where, kind of backing Sarah up here, I do think now that the SEC has kind of created this tier of 3-loss opponents with all of those have at least 2 bad losses. None of the 3-loss teams have 2 good losses.
Facts. So now this is my question then. I mean, because we talked about the SEC, we talked about the ACC. The Big 12, I think, is cooked. They're going to get one in because of the loss with Colorado and or Arizona State upsetting BYU. So now I'm looking at, okay, 2-loss teams versus 3-loss teams. And how could the playoff get thrown in a total turmoil outside of anarchy happening with teams like Penn State, Oregon, Ohio State, teams like that, Indiana losing their last game, because that could throw it in a monkey wrench. And I just kept looking at my poll, looking at the playoff, looking at the teams, and I just kept circling Notre Dame. And I was like, if Notre Dame loses, will that propel a 3-loss team into the playoff? Because I think they're the gatekeeper. I think a 1-loss Notre Dame cuts the numbers down because if you really count it, if you count 4 for the Big Ten, 1 for Notre Dame, that's 5. You get the ACC 6, Big 12 7, SEC 8. Now you have a room to play with 1 or 2 teams, maybe 4 in the SEC or maybe 2 in the ACC. But if Notre Dame loses, they throw this into total turmoil unless just all anarchy breaks loose. So I'm asking you guys, do you think that Notre Dame is the biggest player in this? Or would you call another team a player that can actually throw anarchy into the college football playoff? Andy, I'm going to start with you, bro. What's your thoughts on that, man?
I think you hit the nail on the head where the anarchy comes in with Notre Dame being a 2-loss team that potentially does that but falls out. I'm going to talk about something that I think is a little bit off the beaten path here. That might be some anarchy. Boise State is not looking good. Their last few games have been real weak. They played a 3-win Wyoming team, which, again, it's tough to go up to Laramie. It's tough to win up there. I understand you only won. But the takeaway was that Ashton Genty got hurt. And this was a program that the big reason that everyone was holding Boise State back from the Mountain West was the quarterback situation. They brought in a big profile USC transfer who actually ended up not getting the starting job. And that quarterback room is just not very strong. So now you're looking at if Boise loses, to Sarah's point that she mentioned earlier, I think there's a legitimate chance that the Big 12 is on that 12 seed line and not the Mountain West champion. But if Boise loses, does Tulane get into the playoff and leapfrog a ton of teams because they're the American champion? Does UNLV get into the playoff? Again, a UNLV team that lost to Syracuse at home back in week 5. Like, and how does that impact the rankings then? Again, if we're talking about a Miami team that theoretically loses to Syracuse, UNLV and Miami have the same loss. Like, does that rank things differently when you're talking about getting a second or a third ACC team in here? I just think that, like, again, we know that the committee would love to have Boise just be the group of 5 representative here because it makes their lives so much easier to just put Boise in there. But if Boise doesn't get in here, now you're opening Pandora's box about the SEC complaining about a team leapfrogging them by 10 or 15 spots. And so then how does the committee react by bumping down those SEC teams even more to make room for the group of 5 champion? Because right now, again, you look at the AP poll, all of the 3-loss teams are sitting below the 12 cut line. They are the AP voters are trying to send a statement here that no 3-loss team should be ranked in the top 12. The coaches poll, same thing here. It'll be interesting to see if the committee feels the same way.
All right. So Andy made some great points. Sarah, I'm going to switch this question up just a little bit because the 12,000-pound gorilla that's sitting in a corner is the Alabama thing. Alabama's 9-3. They are not going to be ranked in the top 12. So my question is, does a Notre Dame loss put Alabama back in the conversation? Because I'm a firm believer in they made the playoffs so Alabama would never miss the playoff. That's why they made it. They made it because Alabama and Georgia, they want them in every single time. And now we have this dilemma by Alabama taking a critical beatdown against Oklahoma, 24-3. So it does Notre Dame hold the keys to Alabama making the playoffs, Sarah?
I mean, in a sense, yes, because I think Notre Dame is definitely the wild card in this whole situation, but I think Bama holds the keys, and that's not an easy game that they're going to be ending their season with, especially how Auburn just pulled off that upset this past week. I mean, that really just he just looked like a mess, and I was like shocked to see how A&M just fell apart, and that just turned into the biggest disaster in a long time. So I don't think Bama has the easy way in if they were to, make it into the playoffs, because I don't really know if they're going to win this Saturday. I mean, I think they can. I think that they need to. I think it's a prove it thing for Caitlin DeBoer, but I think that they hold their own cards. And I think there's a couple of those other 3-loss SEC teams, and one of them is South Carolina, that I think that could really end up trumping all of them, because they've looked so much better as the season has gone on. They finally seem to have Sellers in a really comfortable spot. I mean, I know they played a really easy team last week, but he looked very poised. He looked really good, and he had 4 incompletions. So I was really, really impressed by that. And I just really like the way that Beamer has coached that team, and the way that he has just really riled up that entire university and everything. And that whole area is so excited for them. So I think they might be the little wrench that might stick into the SEC, especially if they can pull off this game against Clemson this week.
Man, Sarah, that is an outstanding point, because I believe totally that if, for my money, if you had all these 3-loss teams and you line them all up in a row, and I had to point to one, I say they deserve the playoff, the South Carolina Gamecocks is that team. They deserve to be in the playoff based on what they've done. Because think about it. They shouldn't have lost to LSU. Sellers doesn't go out. They beat LSU down. They had Alabama beat dead to rights. So they really should only have one loss, but been playing consistently and just winning game after game after game against ranked opponent. I mean, don't forget what they just did to Texas A&M just a couple of weeks ago. They beat the brake shoes off of them. So the issue is, hey, South Carolina could be that 3-loss team that could throw a monkey wrench into it. I got a comment from Mr. Woodside. He says, "Hey man, Alabama's out for his money." I don't know yet, Mr. Woodside. I got to see how everything lays tomorrow night. If Alabama is like below 15, then I say, yeah, it's adios muchachos for them. But if they're not, go ahead,
Alabama
Andy.
is a numbers darling. They're number 3 overall in EPA. They're number 4 in ESPN's FPI. They're number 6 in Bill C's SP+. Like, if you're looking at a 3-loss team that's going to get in, I don't think Bama should be in because the 3 games they've lost have been remarkably embarrassing. But they are, by all numbers that this committee looks at, they are the best of the 3-loss teams, and it's not particularly close.
That's facts. Hey, Mr. Woodside, thank you, man. I did call the Gators to beat Ole Miss. I told y'all. Listen, Florida, there's 2 teams in the in the SEC that's a year away. One of them is the South Carolina Gamecocks, and the other one is the Florida Gators. You better catch them boys this year, because if you catch them next year, you're going to be in big trouble, because both of them got dog quarterbacks. Lenore Sellis and DJ Langway are the truth. So absolutely, yeah. But right now, I don't know if the time is for South Carolina, and it's definitely not Florida's time. All right, y'all, we got to cut this part of the conversation short because normally we go for a little while. We got to take a pause for the cause, get a commercial break, because the slate of games that we're going to talk to you about this week, listen, it's rivalry week. So we can't get all them all. We can't get to all of the games. That's how many good games are this week. So we're going to pause, get a quick word from our sponsors. If you're listening to us wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and or Google, and or if you're watching us live on YouTube, give us a second. Let's pause for the cause, and we'll be right back with the Level Up College Football Podcast on Fans First Sports Network. And we're back with the Level Up College Football Podcast. Andy P, Sarah C, and Big G in the building. Listen, our guy Tim Lyons is in the live chat talking crazy already about them Trojan boys. That is definitely going to be a game we cover, because guess what, Tim? Notre Dame could throw a monkey wrench in this whole playoff system concerning what's moving forward. So we're going to get to our first game this week, y'all. We prefaced it already. The South Carolina Gamecocks invade Death Valley and Clemson. And they got to go and fight against that little ugly rock that's at the bottom of the hill that everybody touches. No, at the top of the hill, but everybody touches before they run down. And this is a Dabo Bowl, because I really do believe this is going to be if Dabo wins, this is his stance to say, hey, look, why not Clemson? So you know how we do every week. We break the games down. My co-hosts talk about what they talk about, and then we get to the pick the score. So this week I'm going to start with, because it's ACC country, Andy, I'm going to roll it over to you. South Carolina and Clemson, bro.
This is the true epitome of a great rivalry game, because as we've talked about already, there's playoff implications on both sides here. And depending on what your preferred metric of choice is, you can make a narrative either way. EPA likes South Carolina a lot more than Clemson. SP Plus likes South Carolina only a little bit more than Clemson. And FPI likes Clemson a little bit more than South Carolina. So there's really, pick your poison here. This is a throw-up game. So really, for me, it comes down to the one matchup that we know is going to determine this game, and that's South Carolina's defense against Dabo's offensive line. The South Carolina defensive line has been probably one of the best units in the entire country for in regards to that area. And the Clemson offensive line has been a big question mark that has dramatically improved over the last few weeks of the season. Clemson, you saw in that game against Pitt, where, not to bring up any bad memories, Sarah, but that offensive line was able to handle a Narduzzi rush scheme. They tried stunting, they tried edge blitzes, they tried overloads, and the offensive line handled all of it. And you've now got a quarterback in Cade Klubnik that's not afraid to run out of the pocket and avoid some pressure. So for me, this is a great game to watch because it really hinges on that matchup. When Clemson has the ball, how fast can South Carolina get into the backfield, and can they do it with only 4 or 5 guys in order to cover the rest of that Clemson offense?
I like it. I like the points. Sarah, what you got this week on South Carolina and Clemson?
So I agree with a lot of what Andy said. I think they are very evenly matched. I think that it's going to come down to those lines of scrimmage. But I was looking more at the Clemson defense against Sellers. I think that that's going to be something that they really have a little bit of a strength. I think they're going to put a lot of pressure on him. And he's done very well this year. But I think, after playing a Wofford team and playing so well, your confidence is going to be a little high. And if Clemson can get that pressure early on you, there might be a couple of mistakes that are going to be happening. They have this really, really good defensive end who's already got 9 sacks for the season. So if he is able to get a sack in that first or second drive that South Carolina has the ball, I think that that's really going to put a nice level into the game. And I think that's really going to show to see what the game's going to look like for the rest of the time. I mean, it's one of the coolest rivalries. I go to Myrtle Beach every year and you just see the Clemson and South Carolina fans. I mean, it's everywhere. And that's all it is. It's straight up South Carolina, Clemson. There's no mix. You go to one bar, it's all orange. You go to another bar, it's all red. So it's always been a really cool experience to just watch the fans down there. And I think that Clemson is really, really starving to get back into this after starting off a little bit questionable at the beginning of the season. So I think those fans are going to be a lot. I know South Carolina is used to that because of their types of home fans, but I think it's going to come down to that side of the ball, I think, a little bit more, just because I think that South Carolina's defense against Klubnik, I think that they might be able to give him enough pressure, but I'm really intrigued to see what Clemson's defense can do and really see if they can pull some of those turnovers and sacks and stuff like that and really just set the pace for the game early.
Yeah, I agree with what both of you guys said concerning the offense and defensive lines and the type of pressure and or their ability to protect the opposing team's quarterback. I get it. But when I really took a deep dive in this game, what to me it came down to is Maffa versus Rocket Sanders. Maffa is the running back for Clemson. He's got like almost 1,100 yards. Rocket Sanders got like 1,100 yards rushing, almost 12. And these two are two big mammoth running backs considering the modern age of football. Both of these guys are over 5'11". Both of these guys are over 230 pounds. Both of these guys run downhill straight at you the entire game. And I think whose will is going to be imposed when it comes to South Carolina and Clemson by the ability to run the ball. And I think that's where the game changes, because I've seen South Carolina beat teams up. And when they did, Rocket Sanders was killing people in the fourth quarter. And I've seen Clemson beat people up. And when they Maffa was starting to kill people in the fourth quarter. So I think who wears on who the fastest. And I think that's going to be the key to the game this week. I love the offensive line, defensive line. I think both quarterbacks will be able to do a decent job. I like Sellers a little bit more than I like Klubnik, but it's a rivalry game. So, saying all that, Andy, who you got this week? South Carolina versus Clemson.
Toss-up game. I don't like riding with Dabo, but ACC versus SEC. I'm going to take the ACC homer bias here. I do think, though, again, I'm talking about it, ACC is going to be stumping loud and hard for 3 teams in the playoff. I only think they get 2. Clemson wins this one close. I'll give it to the Tigers 28-25.
Oh, Sarah, who you got South Carolina versus Clemson?
So I flipped the script a little bit, but I think that South Carolina is really trying to prove something this year, and I think that they have it. And I went. It's always funny. I love whenever we come up with our scores because we always end up being so super close. I went with South Carolina at 28-24 over Clemson.
Oh, man, this is like I mean, then we got a lot of hard games, but this is one of the hardest games to pick, man. It's just something about that South Carolina team that's different, man. And I know that Lenore Sellers is going to do what he needs to do. I think that Klubnik, when the lights are the brightest, is when he doesn't play his best. But it seems like when the lights are the brightest with Sellers, that's when he plays his best. But it's a rivalry. So I'm saying that South Carolina is going to pull the upset and beat Clemson 35-31 on the last possession of the game. They go down and score. They're down 28-31 going in the fourth quarter. Give me South Carolina to win 35-31 to beat Clemson, and talking crazy to the college football committee and saying, how about us? We're a 3-loss team and we deserve it. All right, y'all. I skipped the game and I was looking at my thing. I'm like, man, I know we had 6, so I got to go back to the top. Tennessee versus Vanderbilt this week. Because this is big time. If Tennessee drops this game, they're out of the playoffs. And Vanderbilt has shown repetitively that they can be giant killers. So this game, let's break it down. A rivalry, in-state rivalry, once again, Vanderbilt versus Tennessee. Sarah, I'm going to start with you.
I think that it's really just going to come down to how safe can Nico keep the ball, and how explosive Samson's going to look on that offensive side. Because I think that that's I mean, I've been saying it for weeks. I mean, that's pretty much their bread and butter right there. That if he can blow off a couple, 20, 30-yard runs, I mean, we're definitely going to see a really great game. What Tennessee is going to need to do is, I mean, it's all about keeping Pavia in the pocket. I mean, if they can keep him in there, that's going to change the game completely, because he is so much better on his feet than in the pocket. I mean, he can throw a beautiful ball. I mean, that his lovely little Hail Marys that he likes to throw, I mean, they're definitely fun. But I want to see what he can do if there is that pressure and he throws, because they have some really nice people in their secondary on Tennessee. And are they going to get some of those interceptions that he hasn't really thrown? I think that that's going to be the one thing that Tennessee is going to focus on a little bit. I think that defense is a lot stronger than their offense. I just don't see them it's not going to be a super high scoring game. I think it's going to be a very heavy defensive game for Tennessee. I hope, they can kind of keep the time of possession in their hands, because I think that that's going to probably end up being what brings the win for them. But I can't wait to see, though, if Nashville puts another goalpost in the water again, if they pull off this upset. But
they're known for that, Sarah. They are known for that. They will take that. Listen, they will run that goalpost 3 and 4 times around downtown Nashville if they get this win against Tennessee. So, Andy, man, what you thinking, man? Which Tennessee team's going to show up? Jekyll or Hyde? Who's showing up this week for Tennessee Volunteers?
I mean, I think it's going to be Jack. I think it's going to be Hyde, because I'm looking at this matchup with Vanderbilt. Diego Pavia and Vanderbilt was my upset lock of the week coming into last week when they were playing LSU, because LSU has just not been able to stop any running quarterback. And I'm not going to lie, Vanderbilt just looks like they're out of gas. Pavia was good, but not great. And that was not enough. They, again, you're going into Death Valley. You only lost by 7 points. Like, let's give you a good golf clap for that, but that's not going to get the job done against Tennessee. The biggest worry in that game was that LSU was able to run the ball at will against Vanderbilt. And we know that, to Sarah's point, easiest way to keep Nico from throwing the ball to the other team is to just let Nico hand the ball off. And I do think that this is a game where the 2 keys to the victory are contain Diego Pavia and continue to make sure that Nico doesn't make mistakes. Running the ball accomplishes both of those things very efficiently and very well. And it just feels like that if Tennessee is able to establish the run game early and often here, Vanderbilt's just not going to be able to get on the field to even do anything about what Tennessee's marching down the field on them.
Yeah, Andy, I'm digging that, man. And I took a deep dive as far as stats was concerned, and I looked at all of Tennessee's wins this year. They won the time of possession margin over 9.5 minutes. Where the 2 games they lost the time of possession margin under 8 minutes. So there's a big discrepancy. We're talking about a whole quarter plus 2 minutes that if Tennessee dominates the ball and they run the ball, they increase their chances to win at an expedited level. So I'm digging the fact that if Tennessee just turns around and hands the ball off to Sampson, they're going to win every freaking time. And so that's just my thought. I think that's the key. But which Jekyll and Hyde is going to show up? Which team's going to show up between Tennessee? Is it going to be the team that thinks Nico's the superstar, or is it going to be the team that's trying to get to the college football playoff and have a legitimate chance with a good running back? So, saying all that, Sarah, who you got? Tennessee versus Vandy.
I'm going with my guy Sampson in Tennessee. I went with them. I think it's not going to be a super high scoring game. But because I think that's going to be running in time of possession the whole entire time if Tennessee can keep that up. And I went with 2014 over Vandy.
I like the score. Andy, who you got this week with Tennessee versus Vanderbilt?
I think Mr. Woodside's real close here. I'm going to keep – I think there's going to be a little bit less scoring just because, as I mentioned, I think the game state's going to keep things a little bit under wraps here. Give me Tennessee to win this game 27-10. Diego Pavia's miracle again. Vandy's 6-6 and going to a bowl. That should be celebrated here. One of the best single season turnarounds in the toughest conference in the U.S. Like, look, tremendous respect to Vandy, but this ain't it.
I feel it, man. I think this is going to. I think the game's going to get out of hand. I got Tennessee winning 37-17. And they just totally dominate Vanderbilt, man, from the onset. I look for a 2 or 3 score quarter out of Tennessee in the first quarter with just them just going down and just pounding the ball and saying, Vandy, you had a good season, but you're just not in our league and you're not ready to ride this year in the ACC. Oh, in the SEC. I always get those conferences confused. All right. Last game before we take a commercial break. Tim Lyons, this one's for you, buddy. The USC Trojans host the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, in my opinion, and I said this a couple of weeks ago on the show, Notre Dame looks like a team that could be a Final Four college football playoff team. Their defense is outstanding. Now, yes, the quality of opponents has not been up to par. But as far as the defense is concerned, they look better. They look actually good. The offense has improved. So now here it is, USC, who's trying to play giant killer. They had a switch at quarterback. The UNLV transfer started last week. It was an experiment against UCLA. Now USC's looking like, okay, are we going to knock these boys off? Because Notre Dame, in the past, has struggled the most outside of Caleb Williams with the Trojan boys. So, Andy, who you got this week between USC and Notre Dame, and what's your breakdown for the game, bro?
Yeah, I think that this is a game where we're going to see Notre Dame do the thing that we've wanted them to do all year, which is put a beat down on a name opponent. They obviously beat both service academies when both service academies were ranked, which also, just a reminder for all you people out there who care about this stuff, Marcus Freeman has allowed a total of 6 points against the service academies in his last 3 games. This is a guy who has owned the service academies going back to like his time in when he was defensive coordinator at Cincinnati. Your triple option ain't surprising Marcus Freeman.
Facts.
Which also not a whole lot else is surprising Marcus Freeman. Notre Dame's defense, number 2 in the country in S&P plus, number 2 in the country at drop back rate defensive EPA, which again, expected yards per play. Basically, every time you drop back against Notre Dame, it's negative expected points, which is really hard to get negative EPA in the passing game. There's only a few teams that do that every year. I just look at this team and Big G, you hit the nail on the head. This is an elite defense, and the offense with Riley Leonard, top 25 in passing, top 3 in rushing.
Facts.
This is a team that is like, if we were talking NFL, this is a team that's built to win in January. College football is a little bit different than that, but this is a team that has a very, very, very high floor. USC is not going to snap that. And again, I know we all look at that one loss. We look at the soft schedule. If you play that Northern Illinois game 100 times, Notre Dame wins at 98. Like it was a dominating effort where they shot themselves in the foot the whole way. We should be talking about an undefeated Notre Dame. We're not. And I think that they have been severely underestimated because of it.
That's facts. Sarah, so my question to you is there any way in God's green earth that USC can actually give Notre Dame a run? Or is this going away? Notre Dame's just going to dominate the Trojan boys?
I would love to say that they could, but I just don't see it. And Notre Dame has looked better and better and better weekly. And I can't believe those words are actually coming out of my mouth. But I mean, I was looking up some of the stats that they've just had in the past couple weeks and all of the different things that this defense has done. I mean, they're ranked at the top for everything. They have 26 forced turnovers. They are 4 touchdowns off of turnovers. They're tied for second. I mean, and then they have this rushing game that with Riley Leonard, and it seems like they finally might have an actual running back behind him who can actually take away some of that pressure whenever Riley doesn't want to have to, come out of the pocket and run. So I think that they're going to play a big game. I think this is going to be a very interesting end of the season for USC. I'm very interested to see what's going to happen with Lincoln Riley. I think there's going to be a lot of questions after this game for USC more than anything. And I think Notre Dame's going to prove that they deserve to be in these playoffs because they have definitely made them that Northern Illinois loss kind of almost like, did that even happen this season question now, because it's not the same team that was there that week.
Sarah, that's big facts, man, and I'm agreeing with it. I think that Notre Dame, and like I said, I about 3 weeks ago, maybe 4 weeks ago, I sort of jumped on the Notre Dame bandwagon because I saw the play and the caliber of play that they have on the defense. I think that they have 3 out of 4 starting defensive backs will play at the next level. I think that both linebackers will play at the next level, and I'm counting maybe 5 to 6 defensive linemen that will play at the next level. And I think they got maybe 1 or 2 first-round draft picks on that starting defense. The question for Notre Dame is Riley Leonard and his ability to attack USC's defense. Conversely, USC's defense is the problem. USC always has been able to score points, but they can't stop anybody. So that's the problem. That's the big issue. The last factor going into the game is Notre Dame traveling west. We all know how east to west and west to teams act when they travel to and from. But it's a rivalry. It's played in the Coliseum. Notre Dame knows what this is all about. So saying all that, I want to get a score from you, Sarah. Notre Dame versus USC.
Notre Dame big, 48-24.
Woo! Whoa. That is big facts. I mean, I don't know if that's bias. Man, that's
not bias in any way.
You know what? Sarah? I'm going to break out one of my new signs. It should say, let her cook. Let her cook. She's saying Notre Dame is going to beat the brake shoes off of USC. Andy, what's your score to this game, bro?
Look, I'm not that bullish, but I'm pretty close to it. I'm going to go with Notre Dame 35, USC 14. And the number that we all got to pay attention to right now is 90 million. That's how many dollars it's going to cost if USC wants to fire Lincoln Riley.
Oh, so you saying this adios muchachos for Lincoln after this game, maybe with the
I think that they're going to want to, but look, Big G, if you've got 90 million lying around, like, you can come talk to me about this. We can find something better to do than fire Lincoln Riley with that kind of money.
Hey, I had to let Andy cook too, because Andy out there calling for people's jobs, so I feel it. Hey, listen. I like Notre Dame to win. I just think that USC keeps it a little bit closer than what most people think. And I think Notre Dame pulls it out fourth quarter. They'll dominate. They'll go up by 2 scores in the fourth quarter. So I got my final score, Notre Dame 37, USC 27. But I think fourth quarter, they'll pull it out because they're a bigger, stronger, tougher team. And they write their way to not just the playoff, but a home game hosting. And we'll talk about this on the show next week. When these northern teams get to host these southern teams in the snow in December, We're going to see what the SEC is all about when you have to go play in snow with snow angels come December. So I got Notre Dame winning and hosting a playoff game, 37-27. All right, y'all, we got to take another break, the last break for the show. We got 3 intriguing games coming up right after the break. If you're watching us live on YouTube, we'll be right back. If you're listening to us, wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and or Google, we'll be right back with the Fans First Sports Network Level Up College Football Podcast. And we're back with the Level Up College Football Podcast. Andy P, Sarah C, Big G, talking college sports, talking rivalry week, big time games. The end of the season. Can't believe we're here. I wish it would start all over. I wish we could hit rewind and reset. But we're to the last week of the season. And we got 3 dynamic games on the back half of the slate. Game number 1. I'm telling you right now, upset alert. Circle the wagons on this game. The Oregon Ducks invade the Washington Huskies to remain or try to remain the only undefeated team in college football. And remember, I called it at the beginning, ain't nobody making it. This is an old Pac-12 rivalry. This game means a lot, especially for those Washington Huskies. So, Andy, I'm going to start with you, bro. Washington Huskies versus Oregon Ducks.
I think that this is a game where you can look at the numbers and they're going to tell you Oregon, and Oregon. But I am going to go a different direction than I normally go, which is Dan Lanning lost to this team twice last year.
Facts.
Dan Lanning has completely revamped his team's image this season in that gladiator thumbs down mindset, in that we don't go for wins, we go for kills.
Mm-hmm.
This is a rivalry game. I am honestly, I'm leading all this to say, like, I am scared for the Washington Huskies, who are a good team. They're just not a great team, and their issue has been physicality up front on both sides of the line. This is just one of those games that you're looking at and you go, look, it's rivalry week. Anything can happen, obviously. But this is one of those games where you are incentivized to beat somebody down.
Mm-hmm.
And Oregon is the kind of team that you do not want incentivized to beat you down right now.
I'm feeling it. So, Sarah, listen. We saw Auburn mess up Texas A&M season. We saw Florida mess up Ole Miss's season. We saw Oklahoma mess up Alabama season. Now, these don't have the rivalry like the Washington and Oregon. But a lot of these kids play against each other. And that's what preference I'm putting out. These kids play high school against each other, and they know each other. So is this Washington team that far gone where they don't stand a chance in hell to beat the Oregon Ducks coming up this Saturday?
I think that what Andy focused on is kind of what I was looking at. And the big thing is like, this is Dan Lanning's game to just showcase everything possible. I put a note down here also that I think this is going to be Dylan Gabriel's game to be like, okay, I can do this. Now, can I get invited to New York? Can I become the real favorite of this? I just see them wanting to really, really showcase the fact that they are the number 1 team and they want to prove it. And Lanning has been able to do that in the past couple of weeks. I mean, that last game against Wisconsin, I mean, it didn't look pretty, but they pulled off that win because they are learning how to win games and win games, tight, which I think has been something that we didn't really know for sure about Oregon because they didn't look like that at the beginning of the season. And they've really, really started to prove it. So I've been really intrigued by them. And Dan Lanning is just a special being. I think that he's going to have some of these trick plays. He's going to do some really cool things with that special teams that is the number 1 right now in FBS. So I'm really, really intrigued to see what he can pull off there. And that defense is a little bit, sneaky scary. I don't think that they get talked about enough because of the fact that, we want to go for the flashy quarterback that came in and what Lanning does with his special teams and stuff like that. But their defenses look really, really good. They have 29 sacks, they have 10 interceptions, and they have one really great guy that has almost 9 sacks for the season. So, like, I think that defense is going to put a hurting on them. I think they're trying to prove that they really, really are a Big Ten team. Like, they're going to become that. Like, this is going to be their prove it. Hey, we're not this, like, West Coast team that just throws the ball and looks pretty. Like, we're going to hard nose beat you down. And I think this is going to be that game for them.
Listen, I'm buying it. I believe it. I'm going to be the first to tell you that the Oregon Ducks is a team full of dogs. they are dogs. The kicker's a dog.
Yeah.
The dang old special teams coordinator is a dog. The strength and conditioning coach is a dog. Everything about the Oregon Ducks spells D-A-W-G, dog. They are killers. They are not to be played with. They are not to be messed around with. And that mentality starts with their head coach. Dan Lanning, like my panel said and like my co-host said, wants to beat the brake shoes off of you. He wants you to know, don't come around these parts no more again with no half nothing, because we're going to put 50 up on you. So I like Dan Lanning a lot. So I'm going to go first by picking this game. I think that Oregon beats the brake shoes off of Washington. Give me Oregon 50. Washington Huskies 21. Give me the dang on Oregon Ducks on a beatdown. Andy, I'm going to you, bro.
Oregon 45, Washington 10. Sorry, dogs.
Ooh, beat down. They're going to show who the real dogs is this week, Andy. Sarah, who you got?
Oh, I went with Oregon, and I'm telling you, I swear we have ESP sometimes. I have it all typed up and everything. I picked them 50-21.
Ooh, that's what I'm talking about. They trying to put that nickel out there. I'm telling you, they trying to show everybody, look, we the real dogs around here. You can get up on out of here with this little Washington Husky thing. We some dogs. So I like it. I like it. We went 3-0 on that one. All right. Maybe the second best game and a renewed rivalry. I mean, this has been waiting and brewing for years. Ever since A&M jumped ship and jumped to the SEC and left Texas standing there, this thing has been just brewing and brewing. And you talking about two teams that literally hate each other. The Texas A&M Aggies, with everything on the line, host the Texas Longhorns in College Station in Texas. The 12th man going to be rocking. I've been there, seen the stadium. It's not to be played with. It's not to be played with, especially at night. And, oh, by the way, this is a 7:30 kickoff game. Texas has everything to lose, but Texas A&M has more to lose. So I'm going to throw it to my crew. Sarah, Texas and Texas A&M, what you got?
Well, I guess my big question is, after the message that was sent out earlier, who's going to be their starting quarterback? I mean,
the MRI results have been buried. So for you guys that don't know this, listening and watching us, Quinn Ewers had an MRI done on his ankle and his knee. Normally, if there's not an issue, they come out and say, no, it's not a big deal. It's as quiet as a church mouse in Austin, Texas, down in the 40 acres right now. So something's going on. We just don't know yet. So, Sarah, that's a good point. I'm going to throw it back to you.
Yeah. And so that's kind of where I'm like, I'm like looking at all the numbers and everything like that. And I'm like, okay, well, if you put Manning back there, you have a completely different offense. You have a true dual threat quarterback back there. And A&M, I feel like sometimes has struggled against some of those types of quarterbacks, which is going to be interesting. And Marcel Reed has really, really struggled against some really good defenses. And Texas still has that. I mean, I know they've had a couple injuries, but they still have that defense. They're still ranked. They're still there. And I think Sark wants to really, really show, like, hey, we were in, this is another coach that just like has this amazing culture, he wants everyone to like win and be so excited about every single game, every single play, every single thing that's happening on that field. And he's a really great play caller, and I think that he will have a lot more fun if Manning's back there. So I really think that that's going to be the biggest factor. I mean, I've lost a lot of trust in Ewers as the season has gone on, and I think that this could be that trap game that puts them out. I think they'll still end up in the playoffs even if they are to lose or anything like that. I think this is more of an A&M prove it. And like you said, I mean, I have never been to College Station, but I've heard enough about College Station that it is
nuts. It's crazy down there. It's nuts.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that might be that's going to be, that's that 6-man effect. So, I think Elko is a really good coach. I think that he has really, really built this team up, and he really, really wants to show that, we're not that team that's lost those games. But I mean, you can't really say that whenever, you're losing some pretty bad games, and this last one didn't look pretty. Your defense did not look pretty, and they let Auburn put up a lot of points. And I think Texas has the ability to do that. So I really am intrigued by this game. I'm excited to watch it, but there's a lot of questions right now that I just wish I had more answers, that I could really, really come up with some better answers to who's going to really pull off this game.
Man, I'm feeling it. Andy, A&M's pissed, bro. They are pissed off. They might have just shorted their season. And Rob, I'm feeling you. They just took an L that they wasn't supposed to take against a scrub. It wasn't like Auburn was good. They some scrubs. They lost to them in overtime. Maybe it's because they was looking too far ahead. Like, man, look, we got to get ready for this. But now here comes the team that they hate the most. The orange. Whatever the color they got, that rust, whatever that garbage is. Horns down. Get that garbage out of here. So, bro, what you looking at for this week, man, with this game, man?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys saw, but last week when asked at his press conference if they asked Mike Elko if he was looking ahead before they played Auburn, he said, no, we're focused on the next opponent, Texas. So he let it out of the bag that they overlooked that Auburn game. And again, no, Auburn won by 2, but SP plus post-game expectancy takes a look at the stats, takes a look at the game, and says you play this 100 times, who's going to win it? Auburn, 78% post-game win expectancy. Texas A&M was lucky to be in that game and should have won that game by about a touchdown. And so you're sitting here going, all right, you just got thoroughly outplayed on the road. Now you got to go home and play your rival who outmatches them in pretty much every way. And Sarah talked about the quarterback matchup. For me, it's really been Texas has had a struggle this season to set up their running game consistently and effectively. So they've really balanced that out by leveraging a hyper aggressive screen game, both wide receiver and running back screens all season long. And if you look at what Texas A&M does best with those players on the edge, screen game's really going to neutralize the number of times that you can get Surtain running off the edge, really limit the number of times you can get those linebackers coming off weird angles and get into the backfield. I just really don't like this matchup for A&M right now. I didn't like it before the Auburn loss, and now I really don't like it because the numbers are saying Texas should win this game by a touchdown, even in College Station. And now I'm worried that if you're Texas A&M, you just got called out for looking too far ahead. You got outplayed by a bad team that, as Sarah mentioned, scored way too many points on you. I just am worried here that this might be, this is the bubble popping for Texas A&M, both figuratively and literally.
I like it. I feel it, man. Listen, the issue is that I worry about more than anything is Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers is check down Charlie. That's what he does. That's his game. He checks down. He doesn't make the bad pass, right? But how you beat A&M is you got to go vertical. And if you don't go vertical on A&M, you are in big trouble. Trying to screens, like Andy said, ain't going to work. Trying to beat them in the middle of the field ain't going to work. You got to throw 40 and 50-yard bombs. And Ewers can't do that. But the backup quarterback, sure enough, can do it. He can push that ball down the field like there ain't no tomorrow. So it's going to be interesting to see what type of decisions Steve Sarkisian makes for this game. And you could possibly see even a quarterback switch somewhere in this game. because A&M wants to fight in a phone booth like Georgia fought them. A&M wants to get in a phone booth, body blow, bloody blow, run the ball at you, hit you, punch you. And Texas wants to play like a Maserati. And down there in College Station, man, I don't know if Maserati play is going to work because they ain't seen nothing like this. That I was at the Michigan game. Shout out to my boy B Dirt. Michigan didn't get loud against Texas. It didn't get loud like that. I was in the stadium. I heard it. But I know A&M's going to get real loud the whole game. So yours in the check down Charlie, I don't know if that's going to work, bro. So I digress. I said my piece before we do the picks. Andy, who you got this week? A&M versus Texas. Andy about to get the big fine. He took a deep breath. He's like, Lord, I had to keep his mic muted. He don't know what to do.
I want I blindly trusting the numbers give me Texas 31-21. Like I think that they're a better team. But this Ewers news is really freaking me out. I think Arch is good, but his first real full start being at College Station and a renewed, like, look, if he succeeds then yes, he's definitely for real and he's the next chosen quarterback. But man, if Ewers does, I'm going to cop out. If Ewers doesn't start, give me the Aggies. If Ewers is healthy enough to go and play, I like Texas by 10.
Andy done hedged his bets. I feel you, man, because I almost feel like doing that same thing too, man. Sarah, who you got this week between Texas A&M and Texas?
I'm in the same headspace as Andy and you. Like I'm in such a toss-up. Like I was looking at everything and I'm like, there's such a big question mark at the top of this game that we're not going to know until, whenever they decide to put out that news. So truly, who's going to win? I think that if Ewers is in, I think that Texas can pull it off just because I think that they can play a safer game. But if Arch comes in and he can really pull off a really great, like nice run or a nice deep pass early on in the game, I think that that's going to set a tone that possibly could end up making him, like you said, like he could end up being the star. He could be up, the number one guy that we all believe he is. But I think then possibly the Aggies could pull that off, that win, just because of the fact that they're at home, because they have such a, I'm sorry, I'm getting over a really bad cold. To have such a strong fanfare there that, they have that home field advantage. So I think it's going to be close no matter what. I don't think it's going to be super high scoring. I went with like 28-24, but I think it's going to be a toss up on really who's all going to be in this game and who's going to be playing starting quarterback for both teams.
Yeah. So I went back, I looked at analytics, I looked at every measurable thing that you could measure. I'm not looking past it, but I just know what this is. This is one of these games where you're going to find out who's tough, right? Texas is going to try to play 7 and 8 in the box because they don't think A&M can attack them vertically. And A&M is going to try to kill whoever the quarterback is for Texas. They're literally going, if it's Ewers, they're going to knock him out the game. If it's Arch Manning, they're going to knock him out of the game. And then I had to look at who really hates each other. A&M hates Texas, man. Texas hates A&M, but A&M hates Texas. Like they hate them with a passion. This has been burning for them forever. And down there in that 12th man is going to make a difference. There's going to be a play where Texas is going to mess up just because they can't hear. And I think that's how the game swings. Give me A&M to upset Texas Longhorns. 28-24. And the 12th man gets it done for the Aggies this year. Not knocking the Longhorns out of the playoffs, but definitely not putting them in the top 4 moving forward for the playoffs. All right, y'all. We came to the game that that most people came here to talk about. There's a little something. There's a little something brewing, man. A lot is on the line. I'm not gonna talk so much. I'm just gonna lob it up. But you might want to pay attention to my hands as I lob it up and I throw it to Sarah and Andy. We have the game, the granddaddy of them all, the greatest rivalry in all of sports. The Ohio State Buckeyes host the Michigan Wolverines, 12 o'clock noon Saturday in Columbus, Ohio. Sarah, who you got?
Oh.
And what you talking about this week for the game?
I mean, I can't really hide my fandom not too much. So, I mean, we all know that.
What you got? You got something on your shirt?
Oh, I'm sorry. You all know who I'm going to be rooting for. But oh no, I don't today. I just wore red. Sorry.
Okay. Okay.
But I think that Ohio State looked really, really good last week. I'm starting to have a lot of trust in Howard. I'm kind of liking his little chippiness that he's kind of built on him. And I think that the team has kind of rallied behind that. And I think this is going to be his game. I think this is going to be the game where he's just going to be throwing it to his number one guys. I think both of those receivers are going to have big games. And I'm really, really intrigued to see just what Michigan can do against that defense. I mean, the questions up in their quarterback and all their players right now. I mean, I know they do have some really great running backs. I really do like them, but that's really the only thing that I really could even look at on their stats that I think look like a top tier team that can beat somebody. I just think that this is Michigan's off year. I think that they are just trying to rebuild. I mean, they're coming off of a really, really big high. And I think that Sharon Moore is going to, play a little bit tough and play a little tight because he's going to want to try to pull it off, but I just can't. I'm not even looking at like stats and everything. Like from what I've watched all season, I just can't see it right now. And it's in the big house. It's at home. I mean, that crowd is going to just put everything into that team, and they're just going to want to win for them.
I'm feeling it, Sarah. Andy, man, I've been quiet. I done had a lot of props going on over here. I ain't said too much. I got a few more props to show around. So, Andy, who you got this week with the Buckeyes and the Michigan Wolverines, and what you like about this game?
I'm about to drop my hottest take of the year.
Oh, my God. Don't do it, Andy.
I don't think Michigan scores a touchdown in this game. I would be willing to say, I would be willing to go as far as saying, I don't know if Michigan gets 200 total yards of offense in this game.
Oh,
I'm willing to say that I think that this is the emphatic game that Ryan Day is looking for and needs because of everyone's willingness to write him off so easily. Vegas says that Ohio State's going to win by 25.
Whoa.
EPA projected matchup says Ohio State's a 90% favorite to win this game. FPI says that Ohio State's the second best team in the country, and them in Texas, you could flip them back and forth. There's not really a whole lot difference there. I just think that similar to the Oregon game, there is not a single position that Michigan matches up well at because their best strength is the cornerbacks, and then Ohio State's running out 3 NFL guys there. Like, I just don't see a way that the Michigan defense can slow this offense down unless Ohio State wants to slow down.
Hey, listen, man, B-Dirt, that is a for real comment running through the jungle. He said, if Michigan pulls this off, Ryan Day is gone and forever be compared to John Cooper. We shouldn't come close. That is total facts. Yeah. If Day drops this game, matter of fact, let me tell you something. If Day drops this game, Day's not even walking back at the Woody. They will have his stuff packed in the hallway in black garbage bags and saying, bro, you're out of here forever. You cannot lose 4 years in a row to Michigan. You have paid $20 million in NIL, and you see the fruit of your labor. You got all these returning starters. You brought in Caleb Downs, who's the best defensive back in the country. In my opinion, people say, no, he's the best safety. No, he's the best DB. in the country. I love Will Johnson. I think he's going to be a great pro. Travis Hunter's hype machine. Caleb Downs is an NFL dog off the back. You probably got the best wide receiving core in the freaking country. Emeka Buka, Carnell Tate, Brandon Enos, and Jeremiah Smith. You got the best two-headed monster in the country at the running back. Quinyon Jenkins and Travion Henderson are dogs. You hear me? Dogs. But here comes Michigan. And wouldn't they just love to play spoiler and dog us out this season and beat us and send everybody packing? So this game is for all the marbles. This game is for Day to finally get that monkey off his back. Because I'm going to tell you what, if he don't get it off his back, the monkey going to stomp him out this year. The monkey going to stomp him out, and ain't no more breathing, ain't no more living. Get to packing and get to kicking, Coach Day. You up out of here. So it's all on the marbles. It's all on for this game. Buckeyes, Wolverines, Bo, Woody. Listen, this is what it's about. This is what college football is about. The rivalry. Andy, who you got?
I kind of gave it away a little bit with how bad I thought this game was going to be. Give me Ohio State 35, Michigan 0. I think it's going to be a shutout.
Ooh, a 35-0 whooping? Oh, my God. Oh, my God. All right, 35-0, Andy. Buckeyes over Wolverines. Sarah, who you got?
Well, I do have the Buckeyes, of course. I do have them winning pretty decently sized big. I think that it's going to look a little bit like possibly the end of the last week's game. I think they're going to give up at least one touchdown. I went with 2 because, I mean, like I said, I really do like Michigan's running backs. I think that's their biggest strength right now, and their quarterbacks, of course, Will Johnson. But I went with 36-14 Ohio State. They're going to. And if not, Day is bye.
All right, y'all. So I'm looking around. Y'all know I got feet on the ground down there. I know a little something about what's planning. They're going to do stuff you ain't seen all year. And I'm going to make this preference, y'all, and people going to call me crazy for what I'm going to say. Will Howard has a Heisman-like game in this game. Will Howard's going to throw for 300 yards. Will Howard's going to throw for 3 touchdown passes, but Will Howard is going to hurt Michigan with his legs. They've been holding on to it all year long to run that legitimate Jalen Hurts RPO-looking offense, and they've been saving it just for this game. Look out, Michigan, because this one's going to get ugly. Ohio State 42, Michigan 14. And the Buckeyes go back to being the ones. Now, I ain't talking about next year because there's some stuff brewing up there in Michigan. Listen, that's going to be one of our shows in the offseason. That Underwood kid, listen, he's the truth. They just paid $10 million to get that boy. So Michigan will be back, but not this year, dog. Not this year. You're going to take that beat down that you've been eating to get the last 3 years. All right, y'all. We to the end of the show. We got to always do like how we end with the sneaky pick of the week. Sneaky game is going to mean something. Andy, what you got this week for your sneaky game?
Talked about it already. Syracuse, Miami up in Syracuse. I think that Miami has been playing with fire too much. Syracuse is a team that tries to push those envelopes. They play aggressive. Kyle McCord, 12 yards away from setting the single game Syracuse passing record against UConn. Mm-hmm. I think that they are just a team looking to end the season strong, and Miami is a team that has yet to really put these kinds of opponents away early, and that's how you have to beat Syracuse. If you get on them early, they have a hard time coming back. But if you keep them around, ask UNLV, it doesn't end well for you.
I understand it. Sarah, who you got this week for the sneaky game of the week?
I think the sneaky games of the week are just all of these Big 12 games that are coming up this weekend. Because truly, I mean, it's going to pretty much determine then who's going into this playoffs. You have Houston going to BYU. Houston has pulled off the upsets. You have Kansas State going to Iowa State, who somehow had a resurrection of getting ranked again. And then you have Arizona State playing Arizona, where Arizona was super high at the beginning. And then Arizona State has just pulled this amazing season off. So those are my 3 sneaky games, because I don't know if the favorites are going to win any of those games because of how crazy the Big 12 has been. And I'm really, really intrigued to see who those two teams end up being at the end of the season, who end up going to the championship game and who end up going to the playoffs just because of that.
Facts. I like it. Y'all, my sneaky game of the week could have a playoff contender in it. Thursday night, Thursday we watch NFL football every year. But this year, on a Thursday night, the Memphis Tigers play Tulane. 7:30 p.m. on Eastern Standard Time on ESPN. And I'm thinking that Tulane's got an outside shot to get into the playoff, especially if Boise catches a beat down against Oregon State. And Memphis, you guys that haven't watched them and who haven't watched Tulane, these are two very, very good teams. Memphis comes in with a record of 9-2. Tulane comes in with a record of 9-2. They're both playing for first in the conference and could get an outside shot to make the playoff as the 12th seed. So other folks going to be watching, all whatever else in the pro game. I understand, because I understand the tradition. But I think this week, that Memphis-Tulane game is going to mean a whole lot. And that's my sneaky game of the week. All right, y'all, final thoughts. Sarah, what you got as we close the show?
Well, I can't wait until Saturday. I will be watching that lovely rivalry game with those two Michigan fans who are my two closest friends, good old B Dirt and Jess. So I will be the little Ohio State fan driving him crazy, but
give him hell, Sarah. Give him hell. Give him hell.
That's what I'm there for, always.
Facts.
So that's my plans.
All right, Andy, what you got going on, bro? Final thoughts.
Just gonna follow me across all the normal places that I always say every week. Disloyal Idiots for Syracuse stuff. I got my Substack talking about all other things. But wishing everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Know the holidays can sometimes be tough. Sometimes they're great. But, enjoy it and enjoy the football. This is the one holiday where we get lots of football instead of that Christmas mess where we got to watch a buffering Pittsburgh Steelers game. At least these games, we don't have to worry about that.
Hey, man, me and Netflix going to have a problem with that Steelers game buffering, but that's another show. Right? That's a different show. That's not this format. But, man, listen, man, I want to wish all you guys a happy Thanksgiving. It only comes around once a year. You get an opportunity to spend time with your family and friends, and you get to watch football. So it's a special day and a special time. This time is great for football, and it's great for college football. So we thank all of you guys that rock with us through another regular season on the Level Up College Football Podcast. We added Sarah to the show. We got some intro stuff, and we know moving forward, the Level Up is going to be the spot to get your college football news and action. So as for me, Big G, and my co-host Sarah C. and Andy P., thank you guys again, and happy Thanksgiving.
Happy
we'll
Thanksgiving.
See you guys next week. Bye-bye.